He thought love had finally blessed his life. A successful millionaire, admired by many, believed he had found the perfect woman to share his future with. But fate had other plans. One evening, when he returned home earlier than expected, he walked into a scene that shattered his heart. His fiancée, the woman he trusted blindly, was kicking his frail, elderly mother. The moment was cruel, unthinkable, and left him frozen in disbelief. Yet what he did next shocked everyone. A story of betrayal, hidden cruelty, and an unexpected twist of fate. This is one you won't be able to forget. The millionaire had always considered himself one of the luckiest men alive. From the outside, his life seemed perfect. He had built his wealth from years of tireless work, turning a small idea into an empire that people admired. With his financial success came comfort, security, and the ability to give his mother, the woman who had raised him single-handedly, a life of peace in her old age. She was his world, the quiet strength behind every achievement, and he never forgot the nights she had sacrificed sleep, food, and comfort just to make sure he had a chance at education and a brighter future. To him, she was not only his mother but also his greatest blessing. When he met Clara, his fiancée, he thought fate had finally rewarded him with love to match his success. She was beautiful, charming, and appeared to adore both him and his mother. The way she smiled, the way she spoke gently, the way she acted in front of him made him believe she was the woman he had always prayed for. But fate has a cruel way of revealing truths when least expected. On that day, he had finished an important business meeting hours earlier than planned. Instead of staying back at the office, he decided to surprise Clara and his mother by returning home early. He imagined walking in, seeing Clara laughing with his mother, maybe helping her with tea in the living room, the scene filling his heart with warmth. He parked his sleek car in the driveway quietly, choosing not to alert anyone inside. With a smile tugging at his lips, he pushed open the door, ready to embrace the joy of coming home. What he saw instead shattered the image he had painted in his mind. From the hallway, he froze as the sound of raised voices reached his ears. Clara's voice was sharp, filled with venom, nothing like the sweetness she carried when he was around. His mother's frail, trembling tone pleaded softly, almost too weak to carry across the room. He moved closer, his footsteps silent against the polished floor, and what unfolded before his eyes made his heart sink like a stone. Clara, the woman he thought he would marry, stood towering over his elderly mother, her face twisted with anger. And then, without hesitation, she kicked his mother's fragile body, sending her stumbling against the couch with a pained gasp. The world around him blurred for a moment. His heart raced, his ears rang, and disbelief surged through him like a storm. He could not move, could not speak. His mind screamed that this was impossible, that the woman who had whispered promises of love to him at night could not be the same woman who now stood mercilessly tormenting the one person he loved most. Yet it was real, painfully real, and every second of it burned into his memory. His mother clutched her side, struggling to steady herself, tears welling in her eyes not from the pain alone but from the humiliation of being treated so cruelly in her own son's home. And Clara, instead of remorse, spat out words laced with hatred, calling her names, telling her she was a burden, saying she didn't belong there. Each word struck him like a blade, each movement of Clara's cruelty stripping away the illusion he had lived in. His fists clenched at his sides as rage built within him, his protective instincts roaring louder than the disbelief clouding his mind. When he finally stepped forward, the sound of his shoes against the floor startled Clara. She spun around, her eyes widening, the blood draining from her face as she realized she had been caught. For the first time, she looked vulnerable, but not out of guilt, out of fear. Fear of being exposed, fear of losing the wealth, the status, the life of luxury she had stepped into with him. She stammered his name, reaching out a hand as though she could smooth over the horror he had just witnessed. But he didn't move toward her. His eyes, burning with betrayal and anger, stayed fixed on his mother, who was struggling to rise from the couch. He rushed to his mother, his arms gently wrapping around her fragile shoulders, his voice trembling as he asked if she was all right. The pain in her eyes cut him deeper than any wound could. She tried to smile, to tell him she was fine, but he could feel her body trembling against him. He turned back to Clara, his protective embrace tightening around his mother, and in that moment, Clara saw a side of him she had never seen before. Gone was the gentle, forgiving man she thought she could manipulate. In his place stood a son whose heart had been torn open, whose trust had been betrayed, and whose rage now surged like fire. "You touched my mother," he said, his voice low but trembling with barely contained fury. "You dared to raise your hand, your foot, against the woman who gave me life." His words echoed in the room, heavy, unrelenting. Clara tried to speak, tried to twist her story, claiming his mother had provoked her, that it was just a misunderstanding, that he hadn't seen everything. But her lies fell flat against the undeniable truth. His mother's trembling form, the redness on her skin, the brokenness in her eyes, all of it screamed louder than Clara's excuses. In that moment, something inside him shifted forever. The love he thought he felt for Clara turned to ashes. He saw her now for who she truly was, selfish, cruel, a woman who had hidden behind a mask of sweetness while harboring venom in her heart. All the promises she had made, all the dreams they had built together, crumbled in an instant. He stood, his towering presence silencing Clara's desperate pleas. With a voice filled with finality, he told her to leave. The mansion that she had once called her future was no longer hers to step foot in. Clara's tears came then, but they were not tears of remorse for hurting his mother, they were tears of losing her golden ticket, the life of luxury she had sought. She tried to beg, to fall at his feet, but he pulled his mother closer and turned away, making it clear that nothing she did could erase the cruelty he had witnessed. As the front door slammed behind her, the house fell into silence except for his mother's soft sobs. He sat beside her, holding her hands, his chest tightening as guilt consumed him. He had brought Clara into their lives, blind to the darkness she carried, and his mother had suffered because of his misplaced trust. He whispered apologies over and over, promising that never again would she endure such pain, promising that he would protect her with every breath he had left. That night, as he sat awake beside his mother's bed, he realized something profound. Wealth could buy comfort, houses, cars, and even draw people closer, but it could never buy true love, respect, or kindness. What mattered most was not the beauty of words or appearances, but the character hidden behind them. And in that lesson, though bitter, he found a deeper purpose: to cherish the bond with his mother, to honor her sacrifices, and to never again let anyone come between them. The betrayal had wounded him, yes, but it had also opened his eyes. And as the first rays of dawn spilled into the room, he knew one thing for certain: while he had lost the woman he thought he loved, he had kept the most important person in his life safe. And for that, he would never stop fighting. After Clara was thrown out of the mansion that evening, the silence in the house was heavy, almost suffocating. The millionaire sat by his mother's side, his mind torn apart by guilt and anger. Every glance at her fragile figure, every tremor in her hands reminded him of the cruelty she had suffered in her own home, the home he had sworn was her safe haven. It was difficult to fathom that while he had been busy expanding his empire, the woman who had given everything for him was being humiliated by someone he trusted with his whole heart. His mother, despite the pain she felt, tried to console him. She reached for his hand, squeezed it weakly, and whispered that she didn't want him to be upset, that he had already done enough by protecting her when it mattered. But his heart burned with a sense of failure. All night, he couldn't sleep. He replayed the moment in his mind again and again, hearing Clara's sharp words and seeing her cruel actions as if they were branded into his memory. His chest tightened each time he thought of the trust he had given her, the plans he had made for their future, and how easily it had all been destroyed. His thoughts ran deeper than betrayal. It was the realization that he had nearly allowed someone so dangerous to become part of his mother's life permanently. If he hadn't come home early, how much more suffering would his mother have endured? The thought tore at him, leaving his heart raw. The following morning, his mother woke early, as she always did. She had lived her whole life serving others, never complaining, and even now, after all she had gone through, she tried to get out of bed to prepare breakfast. But her son wouldn't allow it. He gently helped her sit back down, telling her that she had done enough for a lifetime. Tears welled in her eyes, not because of the pain, but because she saw the sorrow etched across his face. She reminded him that life had always been full of struggles for them, that together they had faced storms far worse than this. Her words calmed him, but only slightly, because he could not forget the image of Clara's cruelty. Word of Clara's sudden disappearance from his life spread quickly through their circle of friends and acquaintances. People whispered, speculated, and some even tried to reach out to him to know the truth. But he ignored it all. He was not concerned about gossip or reputation. His only focus was his mother. He canceled business trips, postponed meetings, and dedicated his time to her healing, both physical and emotional. In doing so, he began to realize just how much he had missed in the pursuit of success. The small things, sharing tea in the morning, listening to her stories, laughing about memories, were worth more than all the millions he had made. But life has a way of testing even the strongest. Clara was not someone who gave up easily. Days after being thrown out, she began trying to contact him. She called, sent messages, even showed up at his office. In public, she pretended to be heartbroken, telling people it was all a misunderstanding, that she loved him deeply and was desperate to fix things. But he had seen the truth with his own eyes. No words, no tears, no desperate pleas could erase that moment. Still, Clara wasn't only cunning, she was dangerous in her desperation. She began spreading rumors about his mother, claiming that she was manipulative, that she had turned him against her. The lies were meant to damage the image of the woman he held dearest. When he heard of the rumors, his fury reignited, but his mother, wise and calm, urged him not to react. People will always talk, she told him softly, but the truth is stronger than any lie. What matters is that you know my heart, and I know yours. Her serenity humbled him. For years he had thought of himself as her protector, but once again, she was the one shielding him, reminding him not to waste his energy on people who didn't matter. It was then that he made a vow, not just to protect her, but to honor her with every choice he made moving forward. In the weeks that followed, he began to distance himself from the shallow social circles he had once entertained. The parties, the flashy gatherings, the hollow friendships, all of it seemed meaningless now. Instead, he began investing more in charitable causes that honored his mother's values. He funded homes for the elderly, built community centers, and created scholarships for single mothers struggling to give their children an education. Each project was like a tribute to his mother's sacrifices, a way of turning pain into purpose. And as he poured himself into this work, he began to heal. Clara, meanwhile, sank into desperation. She realized that she had not only lost him but also the life of luxury she had craved. She tried to find another wealthy man, but her reputation was already stained by whispers of what had happened. No matter how hard she tried to cover her tracks, the truth eventually found its way out. People who once admired her beauty began to see through the mask. The very charm she used to manipulate now seemed empty, her actions haunting her. For her, it was a slow fall from the pedestal she had once stood on. For the millionaire, however, life began to take a new shape. He learned to smile again, to laugh without bitterness. He realized that happiness did not come from grandeur but from the warmth of genuine love and respect. Every morning when he saw his mother smile, when he shared breakfast with her, when he heard her laughter fill the home, he felt wealthier than ever before. Yet there were moments, in the quiet of night, when he still wrestled with the betrayal. Love, when it breaks, leaves scars that cannot be erased. Sometimes he wondered how he had been so blind, how he had let himself be deceived. But his mother always reminded him gently that it was not weakness to trust, that love is never wrong, only misplaced. What matters, she told him, is that you learned, that you grew stronger, and that you did not let the darkness change your heart. One evening, months later, he sat with her in the garden, the sun setting in hues of orange and gold. She sipped her tea, and he watched her with quiet admiration. She had aged, yes, but her spirit was as strong as ever. He thought back to the night he had caught Clara, and though the memory still stung, he realized it had led him to this moment, a moment of peace, of clarity, of gratitude. He leaned over, kissed his mother's hand, and whispered, "You are the only woman who has ever truly loved me." Her eyes filled with tears, and she smiled, the kind of smile that held a lifetime of love and sacrifice. It was then he understood that everything he had gone through, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger, had brought him closer to the truth. Love is not found in empty promises or beautiful words. It is found in sacrifice, in loyalty, in the quiet strength of someone who stands by you through every storm. And though he had lost a fiancée, he had kept something far more valuable, the unwavering love of his mother. That, he realized, was the greatest fortune of all.